I do not like broccoli.
Hello, friends, and welcome back. Today we're exploring something that makes even the most powerful leaders in the world feel human: food. Forget the politics, forget the speeches. We're talking about cravings, comfort food, guilty pleasures, and yes, some pretty questionable choices. But this isn't just a menu. Each dish tells us about a president's time, his roots, and the America he lived in. Food isn't just sustenance, it's a story. So grab a snack, because we're about to take a delicious journey through history, one president at a time.
God bless George Washington, President of the United States!
Despite being the ultimate founding father, George Washington's favorite food was surprisingly humble. Hoe cakes with honey, cornmeal pancakes drizzled with honey, often washed down with hot chocolate. He also enjoyed roasted meats and hazelnuts. These weren't luxury foods. They were the staples of colonial Virginia, a society built on farming and self-sufficiency. Washington himself was a farmer and entrepreneur. At Mount Vernon, he ran one of the nation's largest whiskey distilleries, producing nearly 11,000 gallons a year by the 1790s. So while he dined like a general, he drank like a businessman. His simple meals reflected the world he lived in, practical, hearty, and rooted in the soil of a new nation.
This was the object of the Declaration of Independence, to place before mankind a common sense of the subject.
Thomas Jefferson was America's first true foodie. After spending years in France as a diplomat, he returned with a refined palate and a love for macaroni and cheese, French fries, and ice cream. But it wasn't just indulgence. Jefferson believed cuisine could civilize a young nation. At Monticello, he experimented with growing rare vegetables and herbs, and he hired a French-trained chef to bring elegance to the Virginia table. His wine cellar rivaled the best in Europe because Jefferson saw wine as culture. His tastes reflected an America eager to prove itself on the world stage, blending Republican simplicity with cosmopolitan sophistication.
From this moment, America takes her place as an equal in the family of nations.
James Madison's favorite? Oyster ice cream? Yes, seafood and dairy and a frozen dessert. To modern ears, it sounds bizarre, but in Madison's time, the Virginia Tidewater was rich in oysters, and elite households enjoyed experimenting with unusual flavor pairings. This wasn't poverty food. It was the luxury of a landowning class that could afford both ice houses and seafood. Madison's eccentric taste mirrored the confidence of a nation still young, but already eager to innovate, even in the kitchen.
One man's hero is another man's traitor, I reckon, sir.
General Zachary Taylor was a career military man who spent much of his life on frontier posts. His favorite food? Cherries. Simple, portable, sweet. It makes sense. A man used to army rations and rough living would cling to small luxuries. Fresh fruit wasn't always easy to come by on the frontier, so cherries represented both simplicity and indulgence. His taste reflected the soldier's life, plain and practical, with just a touch of sweetness.
And the truth shall set you free!
Believe it or not, William Henry Harrison and James Garfield both loved squirrel stew. Why? Because in 19th century rural America, squirrel wasn't strange. It was survival. Families hunted small game to stretch their meals. For Harrison, born in a frontier cabin, and Garfield, raised in poverty in Ohio, squirrel stew was the food of home. As one modern joke goes, if I had a nickel for every president who loved squirrel soup, I'd have 2 nickels, which isn't a lot, but it's weird that it happened twice. Still, for them, it was comfort food from a hard-scrabble life. James Knox Polk was a man of the South, and his favorite was classic Southern fare, ham and cornbread. Corn was abundant, and pork was the backbone of Southern diets. This choice reflected more than taste. It was the economy of his world. In Polk's time, the South's wealth came from agriculture, and meals centered on the land, grains, hogs, and smokehouses. His plate was political because cornbread and ham weren't just food. They were symbols of the Southern way of life.
Each game has its rules, Mr. President. Are we to play chess or war?
General Ulysses S. Grant, victor of the Civil War, wasn't a man of fancy tastes. His favorite dish? Rice pudding. Grant grew up modestly in Ohio. During years of war, he lived on Army rations and coffee. For him, rice pudding wasn't just dessert. It was comfort, a reminder of simpler times, childhood kitchens, and the sweetness of peace after years of hardship. His preference reflected a soldier's longing for the ordinary.
We're stepped out upon the world stage now, with the fate of human dignity in our hands.
Abraham Lincoln, often portrayed as gaunt and solemn, had a favorite food that was hearty yet humble: chicken fricassee, a chicken stew in white sauce. Born in a log cabin in Kentucky, Lincoln knew poverty firsthand. Chicken was a luxury for farm families who usually sold their best livestock. A fricassee, rich and creamy, would have felt celebratory. For a man who carried the weight of a divided nation, it was a dish of comfort and warmth. Rutherford B. Hayes' household reflected his wife, Lucy, nicknamed Lemonade Lucy. She banned alcohol in the White House, so Hayes' table was known for wholesome, sober meals. In an era when the temperance movement was rising, the Hayes family's dining habits mirrored social change. Instead of wine and whiskey, there was lemonade and family-style fare. His plate symbolized a moral stance as much as a personal preference. Franklin Pierce, by contrast, enjoyed whiskey with what he called ice croutons, in other words, whiskey on the rocks. Pierce's drinking habits weren't just culinary, they reflected his struggles. Known as one of the more melancholy presidents, Pierce's reliance on alcohol mirrored personal tragedy. His favorite drink tells a story not of joy, but of a troubled man seeking solace.
I want the people of America to be able to work less for the government and more for themselves.
Calvin Coolidge, a Vermonter, had an obsession with maple syrup. He poured it over almost everything, even meat. For a man often described as stiff and reserved, syrup was his indulgence. It was local pride in liquid form, Vermont's most famous export, sweet and plentiful. Coolidge's syrup obsession was a reminder that presidents, too, cling to the tastes of home.
I ask that the Congress declare that since the unprovoked and dastardly attack by Japan on Sunday, December 7th, 1941,
Franklin D. Roosevelt adored grilled cheese sandwiches and hot dogs. For him, these foods weren't just comfort, they were tools of diplomacy. In 1939, during World War II, he famously served hot dogs to the King and Queen of England at a picnic. Imagine British royalty being handed their first hot dog with mustard. It was a calculated move. Simple American fare as a symbol of democracy, humor, and approachability. At home, FDR's grilled cheese sandwiches reflected the era of the Great Depression. They were affordable, filling, and nourishing, exactly the kind of meal millions of Americans depended on. His food choices weren't just personal, they were political statements of solidarity.
I never worried about it being a curse. I wanted a weapon that would win the war, and it did. That's what I was interested in.
Harry Truman was known for eating steak, always well done. Today, people might roast him online for that preference, but in the 1940s, food safety was a serious concern. Parasites in undercooked beef weren't uncommon, and a well-done steak wasn't just taste. It was protection. Raised in rural Missouri, Truman embodied Midwestern practicality. He wasn't interested in fine dining. He wanted reliable, hearty food that reflected the working-class America he grew up in. His steak was a meal of caution and common sense.
I wish the new president and all who will labor with him Godspeed. I pray that the coming years will be blessed with peace and prosperity for all.
Dwight Eisenhower, Supreme Allied Commander turned president, loved beef stew. And he didn't just love eating it, he cooked it himself. At Camp David, Eisenhower would roll up his sleeves, put on an apron, and prepare stew for family and guests. This wasn't just about food, it was about character. Eisenhower's cooking reflected the discipline of a soldier, the practicality of a Kansas farm boy, and the humility of a leader who didn't mind stirring a pot. For a man who commanded armies, stew symbolized order, warmth, and the strength of simple things.
Ask not what your country can do for you. Ask what you can do for your country.
John F. Kennedy stayed loyal to his Massachusetts roots with fish chowder. Creamy, hearty, and tied to the sea, chowder was part of New England's cultural identity. Kennedy's Irish-American family grew wealthy, but chowder connected him to working-class fishermen and coastal tradition. It reflected both his heritage and his image as a president of youthful vigor and regional pride.
That a house divided against itself by the spirit of faction, of party, of region, of religion, of race, is a house that cannot stand.
Lyndon Johnson was a Texan through and through, and his favorite food was barbecue. He brought Texas brisket and ribs straight to the White House lawn. For Johnson, barbecue wasn't just food, it was politics. Texas barbecue represented family gatherings, Southern identity, and hospitality. Hosting barbecues at the White House helped Johnson project warmth and accessibility during a time of political turbulence.
There can be no nobler nor more ambitious task for America to undertake on this day of a new beginning than to help shape a just and peaceful world that is truly humane.
Jimmy Carter's favorite food was grits. Growing up on a peanut farm in Georgia, grits were more than a dish. They were survival food, eaten daily by farming families. For Carter, grits symbolized Southern culture, simple, humble, and nourishing.
What is a grit, anyways?
It's made out of corn. Them hominy grits.
Hominy?
Of course, Southerners will tell you they're not complete without butter, cheese, or bacon. Carter's choice reflected the values of his presidency, plain-spoken, rooted in tradition, and grounded in the land.
Well, I'm not a crook. I've earned everything I've got.
Richard Nixon's most famous dish was cottage cheese with ketchup. Strange? Absolutely. But there's context. Nixon grew up poor in California during the Depression. Cottage cheese was cheap, protein-rich, and widely considered a key healthy food in the 1950s. Adding ketchup gave it flavor. For Nixon, it was habit, born from thrift and reinforced by health concerns. It may look bizarre today, but for Nixon, it was a reflection of his childhood poverty and lifelong restraint.
All great change in America begins at the dinner table.
Ronald Reagan loved jelly beans. He started eating them to help quit smoking, and the habit never left him. As president, jelly beans became more than candy. They became a symbol. Jelly Belly even created a blueberry flavor so Reagan could serve red, white, and blue beans at his inauguration. A jar of jelly beans always sat on his Oval Office desk, a reminder that small pleasures could carry big meaning. For Reagan, jelly beans reflected optimism, colorful, cheerful, and quintessentially American.
Read my lips. No new pretzels.
George Herbert Walker Bush gave us one of the most famous presidential dislikes, broccoli. He loathed it so much he banned it from Air Force One, declaring,
I do not like broccoli.
For a man who grew up in privilege, the statement was a surprising cultural moment. An elite president standing with kids everywhere who didn't want to eat their vegetables. It made him oddly relatable, even as it baffled nutritionists.
I did not have sexual relations with that woman.
Bill Clinton, especially before his heart surgery, loved fast food. Burgers, enchiladas, fried chicken, you name it. He was even spotted jogging to McDonald's, Secret Service in tow. Clinton's food habits reflected his Southern upbringing and America's 1990s culture of convenience. Fast food was affordable, everywhere, and fun, just like Clinton's image at the time. Later in life, after heart problems, he switched to a mostly vegetarian diet, proving even presidents have to face the doctor's orders.
Make no mistake, the United States will hunt down and punish those responsible for these cowardly acts.
George Walker Bush was known for his simple Texas-style culinary tastes. He loved familiar American foods like steak and especially hamburgers. The special cheeseburger pizza made for him at the White House also showed this preference. In a striking parallel to his father, George W. Bush also publicly expressed his long-standing aversion to broccoli, a dislike he had held since childhood. Furthermore, another habit that shaped his image was his complete abstinence from alcohol since turning 40. This decision stemmed from his desire to overcome a past struggle with drinking. This action not only demonstrated strong personal will, but also became part of his inspiring story of self-mastery and positive change.
That's what I see. That's the America I know.
Barack Obama's favorites included cheeseburgers, nachos, and chili dogs. He loved eating at casual spots, often surprising locals by showing up at diners or burger joints. But Obama also made headlines for his dislikes. He admitted he wasn't a fan of mayonnaise, preferring mustard on his burgers. Small detail? Sure. But in politics, even condiments become character traits. Mustard made him relatable to foodies and gave him a touch of urban sophistication.
And give it a fair shot. Give it a fair chance. Americans have never, ever, ever, ever let their country down. Never.
Joe Biden has a great love for ice cream, especially chocolate chip. He's been photographed with cones everywhere, campaign stops, press events, even foreign visits. At one rally, he introduced himself by saying,
"My name is Joe Biden and I love ice cream."
It's become a symbol of his personality, warm, approachable, and a little indulgent. In a divided political world, ice cream may be Biden's sweetest bridge, a universal pleasure that makes him feel more like a Joe from next door than a distant politician.
And we will make America great again.
And finally, Donald Trump is well known for his love of McDonald's, Burger King, and KFC. His go-to order? Big Macs and Filet-O-Fish. Why fast food? Trump explained it himself. It's consistent, quick, and he believed it was safe from tampering. Growing up wealthy, he still embraced fast food as a way of connecting with working-class America, turning burgers into political theater. His love for mass-produced food reflected a businessman's preference for efficiency and predictability. So, what do we learn from all of this? That from Washington's hoe cakes to Biden's ice cream, presidents are human. Their meals reflect where they came from, the farms, the frontiers, the cities, the diners, and even the fast food drive-thrus of America. Food is more than flavor. It's history, culture, and memory. Washington's whiskey, Jefferson's French recipes, Truman's well-done steak, Reagan's jelly beans, Bush's broccoli ban, and Biden's ice cream all remind us even the most powerful leaders in the world sit down and ask the same question we do. What's for dinner? So now I'll ask you, whose table would you sit at? Would you share stew with Eisenhower, barbecue with Johnson, or ice cream with Biden? Let us know in the comments, and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more delicious dives into history.
Obama out.